places in the United States. Right now, it seems to be limited to the U.S., the people who are on the call. I assume that we are doing other means of sharing this discussion, this study. But I wanted to say that today what we're going to be dealing with is the 14-point working platform of the party. And this appears in every issue of the Burning Spear newspaper. And this, in my view, is one of the most important, if not the most important study that we can do and should be doing. Everybody knows that we do political report to our Congress, every Congress. That is, pretty long document, and we've done other kinds of studies and analyses around various issues from time to time, which contribute to the overall body of our theory and our politics. But there's nothing that's more valuable than the 14-point working platform. The fact is that in many ways, what it does is condense much of what we will find in the 300 pages in the political reports that we do from time to time. And it makes it much easier for people on a regular basis to engage and study. If you open up a political report, and it is, you might find a chapter in the political report that might be 40, 50 pages long, and you have to read the 40 or 50 pages to get everything that's there. But the political report, the working platform is much easier to deal with. You have 14 points. You can learn them point by point, and it is critical, I believe, that one does this. I can't think of anything more important that we can do in terms of our studies. It's something that we can do alone. It's something that we can do with others. It's something that wherever we have party committees, organizations, or committees or organizations of our movement, people can come together and do studies, and should do studies on a regular basis. We should be having studies at least once a week. And I think that central to those studies can be the 14 points. I want to say that, as you know, we are involved in serious political campaigns right now. We're involved in the campaign, the Africa Charged Genocide campaign, where we are winning African people and others from throughout the U.S. and around the world to support the initiative we are taking to take the United States to the United Nations, charging it with the crime of genocide against African people. That's a major campaign. We are involved in the campaign struggling for Black community control of the police, because police are killing our people all around this country. And the response to that is really shallow and weak, to say the most. That the response, generally speaking, does not contribute to changing our relationship to the police as a whole. I mean, at best, you hear people talking about establishing various kinds of committees that can pretend to oversee the police. You hear them talking about body cameras and all of this, but it doesn't change our relationship. A police terrorist with a body camera is still a police terrorist. It doesn't change our relationship at all. Please, we'd like for everyone to mute if you're not speaking. The basic point, I guess, that we want to make is that ours has to be a different kind of politic, and the struggle that we're involved in is a struggle to capture political power over our lives as a people. That we're not seeing accidents happen when they kill a 12-year-old child in Cleveland. It's not an accident. If it was only happening in Cleveland, if that was the only time, if it was happening to white people and African people too, then you can say, hey, that was an accident. Maybe we can get over this. But if they can choke a man to death in broad daylight in New York, and everybody sees it, and it goes out. Millions of people around the world see this, and nothing happens. You know, if they shoot an 18-year-old walking down the street in Ferguson just for walking down the street, if they shoot a 17-year-old in St. Petersburg, Florida, who was just in his car, and they say, oops, we got the wrong guy. If they kill 3 young girls, 15 and 17 years old, and drown them to death, you just can't keep saying that's an accident, and that the cops just don't have good training, or it's negligence, or something to that effect. Obviously, there's a pattern here that should suggest to anybody that something is happening to us precisely because we are African people. And the fact is that we didn't come here the same way white people came to this country. White people came here, generally speaking, occupying somebody else's land, somebody else's territory, looking for freedom, looking for loot, looking for resources. And African came here as a consequence of having lost our freedom, and we became the resources that white people were looking for. So we got a whole different history, a whole different relationship that we have to understand. So what we have done is we've developed a platform that should inform all of our practice, no matter where we are. Even if you haven't read the 300 pages that constitute the political report to the 6th Congress, you should be reading the 14-point platform. You should be having studies on this on a regular basis. So I just wanted to talk about it now. Let's go through it. And it's framed like what we want, what we believe. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, this is something that really was initiated by Malcolm X with the original Nation of Islam newspaper, Muhammad Speaks. And that was created by Malcolm X. And he is the one that gave most definition, and certainly whatever appears to be a revolutionary character, to the Nation of Islam. And I think that the point was that there are a lot of people who knew of what they called the Black Muslims or something like that. But what do we want? What do we believe? And the idea of putting that program together and putting it in every issue of the old Muhammad Speaks was to be able to take the program of the Nation of Islam as defined by Malcolm X out to the world. Then we saw the same thing happen with the Black Panther Party. We saw the same thing happen with JOMO, the Hunter Militant Organization, which was the precursor to the African People's Socialist Party. And I think it was a 7-point program that the JOMO had in the newspaper. And the point is that there's something that we stand for, and we need to be able to articulate it. We need to be able to explain it and share it with the world, because it's not just the white man is the devil, or the white man is this and that, but there's a basic condition that we suffer from, and we need to be able to understand it and explain it to anybody around the world. And when we were involved in the case of Desi Woods, who was an African woman, this was in the mid-1970s, well, early 1970s, who killed a white man, Gerald Horne, with his own gun when he tried to rape her. We built a magnificent campaign. And one of the leaders of that campaign was a 19-year-old woman whose name was Demisha Black-Earth. And we were able to send Demisha Black-Earth all around the world. We sent her to Europe. She spoke before the parliament of one country in Europe, and her basic educational foundation was the 14 points. You got the 14 points. You can walk into any situation. You can make a presentation to any group of people. You know, point number 1, this is what we believe, right? What we want, what we believe, we can say that. If you can get that, then you've got the foundation, the basic foundation. And this is something that everybody should understand and everybody should study on a regular basis. So this was adopted in September of 1979. It was revised, and then it was adopted at the first Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, which occurred in September 1981. And so let's go through it. And I think it's important when we study this to be able to say point number 1, and then point number 2, and say the point, because The objective is not just to be able to do this in order, but to be able to reference any of the points, and you know what it is, not just because it's done and stated in order. You begin to be familiar with this in a more intimate way, that it belongs to you. But so point number one, we want peace, dignity, and the right to build a prosperous life through our own labor and in our own interests. We believe that the U.S. North American government and society were founded on the genocide of Native people, the theft of their land, and the forcible dispersal, enslavement, and colonization of millions of African people. We believe that the present condition of existence for African people within current U.S. borders is colonialism, a condition of existence where a whole people is oppressively dominated by a foreign and alien state power for the purpose of economic exploitation and political advantage. We believe further that this colonial domination is the primary basis of the problems of African people within the U.S., and that we shall know neither peace, prosperity, nor human dignity until this colonialist domination is overthrown and the power over our lives rests in our own hands. And I really think that that's the summation of the condition that we suffer from as a people. I mean, I don't think you can get any better summation than that. People who do not want us to have a scientific approach to the question will say, well, the problem we got is racism, right? Well, what in the hell does that mean? The problem is racism. Well, white people don't like us. Well, white people don't like Chinese either, but they don't mess with them. You understand? White people they don't mess with Russians, etc. So the question is that white people and white power have control of us. And that's why we are worried if they don't like us. If white people didn't have control, if they can make a decision whether you had a job or not, if they couldn't make a decision whether you're going to go to jail or not, whether the police was going to arrest you, take your children, all this kind of stuff, white people wouldn't mean a damn thing to us. We wouldn't care what white people's opinion about us is at all. So it's crazy for us to be running around because you have high blood pressure, you have ulcers, you have mental problems and all of this thing. Think about this, just living like this all the time, having to be concerned about whether white people like you or not, whether the police like you, whether the white judge likes you, whether the white employer likes you, whether white people like you or not, and what that must do to the psyche and every other aspect of life for African people. So if you worry about that, then you end up Michael Jacksoning yourself, right? You know, you change you mutilate yourself to look white, act white, talk white, etc. And you're missing the beat. You're missing the point. There was a man, when I left Publix, the supermarket, buying newspapers today, and there was a white man there, nearly prostrate. He was squatting on his haunches and what have you. And then he asked me for some money, you know, when I came out of the place. Well, I didn't give him any money. And there are two reasons for it. I have a problem, and this is my own issue, just giving money to white people. I have a problem with that. You understand? I mean, damn, you got every damn thing that we've given you. You understand me? Use what you got from me 100 years ago. You know, asking me for something today, I just can't handle it. So I admit that I have a certain kind of prejudice today that bothers me. But the thing is that I really hate to see human beings that have been so demoralized. I mean, think about that. You live in what's supposed to be the richest country in the world, and humans are demoralized and pushed into a state of beggary, you know, where having to beg to existence. That's a horrible state for human beings to exist in. And I don't like that. And I don't think any of us should like that. I mean, that's dehumanizing to say the least. So there was a point somewhere hidden in my reason for getting to that question. But I think the basic thing that I wanted to say is that there's a social system that's responsible for our condition at large. And that we got to get to the essence of the question, because I don't have enough money. None of us do. That's one of the reasons why I hate to give to anybody. It's not because I'm not sympathetic, but I know that when I give you this dollar, that's not going to change a damn thing. What I would try to do is I stop and say, look, brother, I ain't got no money for you, But this is what I do. I got an address, and I can tell you, come on Sundays at 4 o'clock, join this movement so that we can change the situation so Black people don't have to live like this and be standing out here begging, etc. Because the reality is that none of us has the ability to solve the problem of every individual that's suffering from this thing. So it's a systemic problem. It's a problem with a system, and we have to bring everybody into the process of solving this damn problem. Do you see what I'm saying? So I just hate to see people, human beings, pushed into such a state of demoralization, and all of us should. I mean, that's horrible. That's terrible. And you know, we've seen, you know, people under the bridge, under the underpass with their little cardboard things, and sometimes having the children, you know, with them. I mean, that's a horrible state of affairs, and it doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. It's the kind of social system that we live in that requires that, and it's a social system, think about it, that came about, as we say in point number 1, through taking the land of the indigenous people that they call Indians and putting them in concentration camps and enslaving African people. Point number 2, we want the right to economic development and creative and productive employment, which promote the needs and well-being of our entire people. And that's different from saying we want a job. It is different. We say we want creative and productive employment, which promote the needs and well-being of our entire people. The truth of the matter is that most of the time when we get a job, we have to leave our community to get a job. And if we build a house, we build a house for somebody else. If we make cars, we make cars for somebody else. That, you know, everything that we do is done for somebody else. So it's not productive. It doesn't benefit our people, our whole people. And that's, you know, part of the contradiction that we face with. We say, we believe that colonialism is a blood-sucking system which causes all economic development to benefit the colonialist ruling class, state, and society at the expense of our colonized people. So that colonialism, it causes all economic development to benefit the colonialist ruling class, state, and society at the expense of our colonized people. We also believe that the massive habitual unemployment and underemployment of our people benefit the U.S. colonialist ruling class and capitalist system, and that a struggle by African people for jobs must be combined with a struggle for socialism and independent economic development. So, I don't know what you think about that, Sister Adisa. We've just read 2 points, but I bet you got some opinions about everything that we've just read and talked about up to now. If you do, you can share it with everybody else on the call. You got one of them funny phones, huh? Yeah. What you think?
I wanted to unite with everything you said, especially.
You got one of them funny phones, huh? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to everything you said, especially at platform number 2.
Why is that this echo?
She needs to mute whatever source she's at. She needs to mute. She's watching it. It sounds like she's watching it. So wherever you're watching it from, you need to
control
mute.
our own economic.
Can you mute your computer that you're looking at this on, and then just speak to, I guess, your phone? Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to unite and appreciate the platform 1 and 2. Platform 2, we need the right to economic development, creative production. That's what I'm struggling with, because I know that this lies the heart of the revolution, and there can be no revolution without economic development, and we have to have our own institutions to be able to compete with what they have today.
Uhuru. Anybody else want to speak to points 1 and 2? You can do it now if you want to, Marquise. I know you're going to be talking all this stuff when you get here. with us and right in the room, but if you want to, you can comment on points 1 and 2 now.
I do unite with these two first points, most because they deal, in my view, directly with the need for us to develop an independent political and economic capacity. That'll actually, further our own interests as a people instead of benefiting the rest of the world at our expense.
Uhuru. I mean, it should be clear that this is much different from the politic that's prevailing now, that we are mostly assaulted with. People offer us explanations and solutions for our condition. They don't talk to us like this, that, people like to talk to us about, you don't have a job. Well, I had a job before I met you. You understand? I had a job before I met white people. I had a job, had a country, had a language, had a culture, had a whole bunch of stuff before I met you. And if I don't have a job today, it's because I'm no longer useful to you. After you destroy my economy, then you kidnap me, and I'm no longer useful to you because you have to pay me now, and I don't have a job. That's crazy. I mean, that's nobody's dealing with that question. The party does, the Uhuru movement does, and it gets to the essential contradiction of colonialism. And we say, in point number 1, where we say that when we get to we believe, we say that we believe that the present condition of existence for African people within current U.S. borders is colonialism. Then we explain it, colonialism, a condition of existence where a whole people is oppressively dominated by a foreign and alien state power for the purpose of economic exploitation and political advantage. That's really important to point that out, because what happens to us is they try to give us the lie that we just all one people, and America is a nation. We just all one people, but some people just are racist and treat other people badly. So that suggests to us that the solution is to cure racism and everything will be okay. But the truth is that colonialism, when you talk about, and colonies have existed for a very long time. And colonialism is a situation where a foreign group, an alien group, takes control of another group and exploit them for their labor, their resources, and for their own economic and political advantage. Now, if you know that's the damn problem, and not that somebody in the nation doesn't like you, somebody who is a part of your own nation doesn't like you, then your approach to solving the problem is different. You don't pick up a Bible and go and sing, to them and read chapters and verses of this and that. That's does not assume that you got a foreign alien person that's attacking you and controlling your lives, right? I mean, so I just think that it's really important. It's not just something that's written down here that we read and can memorize, but it reflects a real condition that we suffer from, and it gives us the best explanation that's out there. This is what we need to understand. We go through this and understand this and study this, then we can have an explanation, discussion with any group, anybody on the planet Earth. And this is irrefutable. The white power, white people cannot refute what is here. But it can refute if you say, well, you're a racist. I'm not a racist. You are a racist. I'm not a racist. I got 3 black friends. You understand? I'm married to somebody who's black. How can you call me a racist? You understand? And this is with a trap. And they will find somebody they're married to, something to that effect. And you want to meet the most arrogant white person you want to meet in the world is one that's in a relationship with a Negro. You understand? Because she knows everything about black people. You understand? And but that ain't got nothing to do with the question of colonialism is the thing that we have to deal with. And that's the science and that they do not want our movement to adopt. That's why they say Black Lives Matter. What the hell are you talking about? How does that contribute to a solution when you just say Black Lives Matter? So this is part of what it is that we're dealing with. Anybody else want to say anything? Uhuru.
Okay, this is Day.
Yes, Day.
I just wanted to really appreciate points 1 and 2 as well, and also mention like how the state tells the masses that, you know, we don't have jobs because people are coming over here and stealing our jobs and you know, pretty much distracting us with that lie. And, you know, points 1 and 2 kind of really clear that up.
Uhuru. Yeah.
Uhuru, Chairman?
Yes, Kamat. Kenneth. Oh, Jordan, yes.
Sorry.
That's good.
I was hoping that maybe you can speak to, I guess, point number 2 specifically about the Black middle class or the Black managerial class. Because I think a lot of times when a lot of us, you know, maybe younger Africans get encouraged to go to school or, you know, get university training, that we can move into the middle class and become part of that managerial neo-colonial class that controls African people. We become part of, you know, state legislatures or elected officials or, you know, just somewhat a part of the ruling class, right? And that to me is not really what I conceive as, or what I believe to be economic development. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit in regards to point number 2.
Well, it's not economic development, but I think you're dealing with a couple of things, Jordan, some spoken and some unspoken, about your own decisions about being in that university in Missouri and whether that's a good choice or not. First of all, I want to say that sometimes it is strategic for us to be located there as organized revolutionaries, as opposed to just as Negroes who think that our future lies in going to a university. I think more and more Africans, like yourself, becoming clear that the future is not in the university. And the reason that's becoming much clearer is because there are no longer long lines of recruiters outside waiting for you when you graduate to ship you right to IBM or some other major corporations as it used to be. That would muddle the thinking of a lot of people when there are people, you know, waiting when you graduate, offering you checks and a way to move upward in this society. But today, that's not the case. But people, all of us, want to find a way to move forward, want to find a way to improve our conditions. And some of us want to be able to improve the conditions of our people as well. And I can't overstate the significance of that, because most Africans who've gone to school and really struggled to be really good in school have bought into the notion that if you get a good education, you can succeed, you can be successful. The only thing that's really holding you back is you don't have a good education. Get a good education and then the sky is the limit. That's what most of us are taught. And the reality is that the system has a means by which it reproduces itself, not only economically, but the ideas of the society. And education plays the dual related role of preparing people to be productive in this society, and 2, of reproducing the ideas of the society itself. Like you don't go to, even if they teach you in the society, they might teach you something like comparative religions or something like that, but they want your ass to stay Christian. And that's the foundation. You know, you are learning all this other stuff, but everybody knows that Christianity is what it's supposed to be. And if they teach economics, they might tell you a little what they say is Marxism, a little bit, but they want you to stay, you know, tuned into capitalism as the only solution. That's what their objectives are. I think there are some things that can be helpful in the educational process. I think that you have access to tremendous tools and things like that that's not readily available to ordinary Africans in our community. Most Africans don't even leave our village, leave our community. We spend most of our life in a single, you know, city, a single community. There are people in Chicago never left Chicago. There are people in Chicago never left the south side of Chicago. I mean, that's where they live most of the time, etc. So how do we access the world? How do we begin to get an inkling of what the hell is happening outside of our communities? And sometimes education can help there. Although the problem is that having information is not enough. One has to also have the tools that will help us to interpret what it is that we read. You can see a whole bunch of stuff, but for your analysis, your ability to analyze it is not good. And somebody can misdirect you how you sum this up, how you analyze this. So you can be in a place like Miami, where you go to Miami and there are a lot of Africans in Miami. Some of the Africans in Miami are children of people who were brought here directly from Africa. Or if not directly from Africa, they might have stopped in Haiti on the way to come to Africa, but we've been here for a couple of 100 years. Some of the people in Miami are recently from Haiti. The Africans who've been here for a while speak English, generally speaking. The Africans who were in Haiti, because the white man who kidnapped them spoke French, most of them speak French. They might speak English, but they got an accent, from French. They speak French, etc. But you can be in a situation where if you look at, people who in this room now, a whole bunch of Africans in this room now, everybody we assume is African. We say black, 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 black. You go to Miami and there's a black community and there's a Haitian community. That's illogical. How can you be a black community and a Haitian community? But Africans actually say that. Well, the black community is over here and the Haitian community is over there. And it's illogical. It doesn't make any kind of sense. So my point is that you can see stuff, you can have information, but if you don't know how to analyze that information, then you can be misdirected. You can look in and see something with your own eyes and deny its existence. You can look in the mirror yourself and see yourself and tell and actually have a fight with somebody because they call you an African, right? I know African, but everybody else, if you hadn't opened your mouth, if you hadn't said something, you just make the assumption that you're the same people. So analysis is also important. And I'm saying this I'm saying this because it's sort of a caveat or disclaimer of sorts about the significance of education. It's important because we learn how to do certain kinds of things that we can bring to the struggle for liberation, for revolution. But that's why it's also important sometimes for us to have cadre on these damn campuses so that we can take them to the revolution. The institution has a task of seducing those Africans to turn them into chocolate-colored white people, right? And to take them in another direction, have them aspiring but on that campus, all of those Africans, the majority of those Africans, they run into rabid hostility because they are Africans on the campus. That happens. They have professors, who are rabid anti-African forces and who see their mission as civilizing these Negroes who are on the campus and frustrating them and also beating them up to turn them white. And it's good if there's a campus presence there, because the thing about students is, despite the fact that you go to the sub or you on Saturday mornings, all the students are watching cartoons and stuff like that instead of reading Uneasy Equilibrium, something that's going to go someplace. But students are extraordinarily open, conscious. They're ripe, for intervention, and that's why it's good to have the Revolutionary Party, and cadre on those campuses. And the thing is, because what our experience is that most Africans who become conscious and become revolutionary on the campus, they want to get the hell off the campus and get into the communities where the real struggle is, but the struggle is on the campus too. And that's the thing that we, need to be conscious of. And our mission now changes, not becoming what the white people want us to be on the campus, but becoming exactly what the white people do not want us to be. And that is somebody who is diverting the students and their consciousness from this trajectory that has been imposed on them from the outside to what the mission has to be to make the revolution. Then I'm picking up skills that I can take to the revolution, because our problem has been in the past is we don't have access to certain kind of skills in our own revolution. That's why white people become really important in what you're doing, because you don't have the skills ourselves. We don't have access to those skills. And the petty bourgeoisie, Africans, the petty bourgeoisie, are usually the ones who have the damn skills, but they are committed, they have been committed to working for white power and serving white power as opposed to serving the revolution. So students can, on those campuses, can serve a really strategic role. So yeah, the thing is that the campuses and the education do function as a tool of white power. They seduce our children. They brutalize them intellectually, give them a strong sense of, destroy the sense of self-confidence. When I say self-confidence, I'm not talking about some arrogant, you know, pissant that doesn't know anything, but I mean self-confidence as a people. They destroy, they assault our national self-confidence. I'm confident as an African. I'm confident as a Black person. There is no room for that kind of confidence in the educational system. You can be confident, but you're confident as African American or Black American or somebody who's associated with being or becoming an American. So that was a long-winded kind of response to what you said, Jordan, because I just sort of knew some of the subtext to the discussion. But yeah, that's the role it is. It's to transform our children. I want to say this too, since you helped me to step up on this soapbox, that we have a situation where in this city where I am now, in this county where I am now, something like only a third of the African students graduate with a diploma. Another third gets kicked out, and another third gets what they call a certificate of attendance that says you was here, nigga, that's all. You understand? So this is reality. I think I saw something like in New York, it was something like 20-some-odd% of the African male students graduated with diplomas. So it's not peculiar here, but here's what they have. They have a vetting system where Africans go into the school system and very early on, almost from kindergarten. In fact, just about the kindergarten process, they begin to identify African children, and then a process of taming any kind of resistance that's in the students. But for example, they have in this city, in this county, something that they characterize as, what do they call it when the students talk back, or not rebellion, defiance. They have a thing they characterize as defiance. Now, in this county, the majority of African students are expelled from school, not because they committed a crime. Majority of white students get expelled for criminal activity. Majority of Africans get expelled for subjective reasons. That is, the teacher didn't like the way you said this, did this, etc. This is statistically proven, right? So, and then they have this thing they call defiance, right? And what the hell is that? In other words, we only have tame niggas. You understand that this defiance stuff does not fly. So anything that shows resistance is constantly being kicked out of the process. So by the time someone successfully graduates, they've gotten rid of most of the ones who would actually be the fighters, and the ones who would, and they've created just another generation of Obamas, right? Another generation of sellout Negroes. And so they have this kind of process at work. And that's what they're trying to do to you too, Jordan. They just want you to leave all them Obamas there by themselves without any kind of conflict, competition. Number 3, we want an end to all local, state, federal, and other taxation of Black people by the U.S. government and any of its agencies. That might sound strange to some people, but when I was growing up, Black people didn't pay taxes. And white people didn't hassle Black people about it. No IRS messing with Africans. I mean, they didn't expect it, you know. I mean, you got groups like the NAACP. We want to pay taxes too. I mean, the NAACP is responsible for African people being drafted in the military. Did you know that? Because they wanted us to be able to go into the Army too, so that we could prove we are good Americans, etc. So there was a time where Africans did not get hassled about taxes, right? We believe that such taxation, and so in other words, we agree with Ron Isley. I heard somebody talking about him in the barbershop the other day about how he didn't pay them white people their taxes, and you don't pay them people their taxes, they will come and get those taxes, etc. Ron is right. Ron didn't pay him then. Ron went to jail and said, I'm not going to pay you this, my money. You understand? I perform for this money. You know, white people can't do what I do. If you do it, you get the money. I did it. This is my money, right? So, so we say, yeah. Lauren Hill, who called it what it is, she says slavery. See, we believe that such taxation is illegitimate, that black people have no real or meaningful authority within the U.S. government, and that U.S. taxation of African people is therefore taxation without representation. We like that term because white people fought a war with each other around that. We believe that in the absence of such real or meaningful authority, we have nothing to say about how such monies are used, and that therefore the taxes taken from black people are often used against us and other oppressed and exploited peoples within the U.S. and around the world. We don't want to pay to have them killing people in Afghanistan. Don't take my money to kill people in Afghanistan. Don't take money from me to keep other people in slavery. We believe that the use of taxes extracted from the African population to build more prisons, to stuff us in, and to hire more police to kill us with is criminal, as is the use of these taxes to hire soldiers to intimidate and plunder peoples oppressed by this same system internationally. We also believe African people must refuse to pay taxes to a government which uses such taxes to prop up and support brutal dictators around the world and who keep their own peoples oppressed and living in squalor in order to maintain U.S. and Western imperialist economic and political domination. That's a strong position on taxes. And I think that as our movement grows, I think that we have to really push for don't pay them anything. You know, Wesley, you were right. I mean, maybe we need a slogan. Wesley Snipes, you were right. You know, something to that. That's not a bad T-shirt, is it? You know, so I think that we will build a movement like that, you know, as we grow the consciousness of our people. That's the struggle. That's honestly fighting against racism doesn't do anything but say you're not getting our money anymore to do this, and then put every damn body in jail. If you got a massive sector of the African population who refuse to pay taxes to this monster, it would cause a dilemma for them. If you don't pay the taxes, then they can't even pay the guards to keep you in prison. We want the right. We want the right to free speech and political association, a guarantee of the right to work for the betterment and emancipation of black people without fear of political imprisonment and the loss of life, limb, and livelihood. We believe that the liberation of African people throughout the world will come primarily as a result of our own efforts. We believe it is our duty to our mothers and fathers, our children, and ourselves to organize ourselves to overcome our oppression. We believe that the rights to organize and speak out against our oppression are basic human rights, and that the U.S. government must discontinue its attempts to smash these rights and must discontinue criminal attacks on those African patriots who work for the betterment and the emancipation of our people. Anybody want to speak to 3 and 4? Taxes and free speech.
Well, I just want to add, Comrade Bruce.
Yeah.
I want to just like touching on the taxation thing, because like just from personal experience, like I'm just working for jobs, and you know, and the money that they take out of your check, you know, I mean, it's criminal amounts. They take out of your check when you work, and you're paying people who when you're in your community who will throw down on you at any given. Think about that, you know. I'm working my ass off, and you're taking all this money from me, and these police come in here and can do whatever the hell they want to do to me. With your money. With my money, you know. And if you bring it up to them, like, hey man, I pay your salary. Still pepper spray you kick in. Exactly. Yeah.
But the same thing was true of slavery. Think about this. I mean, you know, there's this logic that somehow the slave master took care of the slave, but the slave master couldn't eat if it hadn't been for what the work of the Africans, everything. That's been the history of our relationship. Why should we pay you to brutalize us? And why should we pay taxes? You should be paying us. You understand? I mean, you haven't even begun. At least make a down payment on what you owe us or something like that. You know, in fact, we should create our own IRS. It's just not knocking on white people's doors and say, you owe us, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, anybody? Taxation and free speech?
I want to speak about taxes.
Yeah.
This is Day Son.
Yeah.
Just so I remember when I had bought a house and I thought I owned the house. Until I fell behind on my taxes. And I realized what that meant. And the idea of paying taxes and the fear that people talk about when you don't pay taxes. And it's just interesting to look at it from this perspective and to feel that we don't owe taxes because of the lack of power that we actually do have within the system. So, it's just interesting. The idea of us banding together and not paying taxes and the effect that would have on the system. And also speaking to point number 4 about the right to assemble. Me and Javon was having this conversation last night about the MOVE movement and the bombing that took place, and how if it was for this, if we did have the right to assemble, that would never have taken place. So I just want to speak to that.
Oh, that's really important. And what we're talking about now is how we even write about struggles that we're involved in. Any of us can be writers for the Burning Spear, anything else. We understand these. You don't have to know point by point what's in uneasy equilibrium, but point number 4 says this, point number 3 says this person just got beaten down, bombed because they said something white people didn't want them to say. And in fact, increasingly, what you're hearing is this an assault that's being made very subtle against the right for people to say and think things. Like there's this notion now that it's all right to lock up somebody because there's this process of radicalizing people. You've heard that, right? How did they become radicalized? How did they become radicalized? And so, put them in jail because they are radicalizing, people. Like radicalism is something. It's like the flu. You know what I mean? That you catch it by et cetera. This is an assumption. This is an assault on free speech. In other words, you can't say something that the U.S. doesn't like you to say or want you to say without you radicalizing somebody and therefore becoming some kind of threat. And I'm somebody who's gone to prison, jail, and stuff like that for what I said. And most of the Africans who you are familiar with were murdered, jailed, et cetera, for what they said. Malcolm X. When Malcolm X was a criminal, a pimp, a thief, and stuff like that, he stayed alive. He might have gone in jail, but he stayed alive. But it's what he said that got him killed. That got the whole U.S. military, U.S. State, and other countries opposed him. Garvey, what he said, and it's the ideas. Martin Luther King, what he said. That's what got him killed. So the right of free speech is a joke. We don't have that, and we can write about things. And I think what these points do is give us the ability to clarify what's happening. We can write about it, what's happening in the streets, what happened when the cop jumped on somebody. And that's important too, because what the bourgeoisie only writes about the police beating up somebody if somebody is lucky enough to have captured it on a video or something like that. Otherwise, it doesn't make the paper. But for us, that's an important thing when what the police are doing. And it's something that most Africans don't have any reason to watch the news. You can't find anything that reflects your reality unless there's someone the police beat somebody. That's why even these criminals who publish these newspapers are just the pictures of who got arrested most lately. At least Africans find out they exist. They go to pick up pay $1 to look at which neighbor, brother, sister of yours just went to jail, right? Because they see themselves. What we have to do, we have to write a newspaper when the police in your community, which was being of no significance to CNN, doesn't give a damn about the person on your block, your community, your neighborhood, your apartment complex, who shopped at this store in this community was mistreated. Yep, CNN doesn't give a damn about that. But that's something that happens to every African all around the world all the time. Therefore, we have to write about that and explain it. Explain just what happened so that when an African reads about that and say, you know, like how that's related to point number 4 and what have you, then they understand their organization is on the case around this kind of question, why they should be associated with their organization. But you don't see that other places, no other place where you see this. So that's why it's really important for us. Anything else, free speech, taxes, before we move?
Sure.
Uhuda.
Oh, this is George. Again, I'm sorry.
Who is the sister? Is that Herdosha?
Sorry.
4 feet. Go ahead, Foots.
Chairman, when I started the radio station, they told us we could say and do anything without anybody trying to censor us or take us off. I wanted to push free speech and say whatever I wanted to say. So we tried to do Africans Charge Genocide every show. So I'm gonna push them on the free speech.
Push him on it. Yeah. Max it out. Max it out. Either Jordan.
Yes, I would say that I really unite with that point because, you know, just being in university and doing independent studies, and, you know, it's amazing to me how we look at these statistics which lie to us all the time, and we don't even realize it. Like, for example, I was doing a study where we looked at police murders over the last 30 years, and the statistics show that they've been stable for the last 30 years, and that there's been no significant increase or any kind of increase of any kind, but that there's just been more attention drawn to them by way of, you know, video or dash cameras and all this and that. But, you know, I fought my professor on this because I'm like, you know, we fail to see the everyday violence that police do to us on a daily basis. Even myself have gone through that. But even if you look at the case of Yeshitela Clement, you know what I mean? That maybe not be a case that's counted, right? Like they can skew that in any way they want to because they have control of the narrative, they have control of the statistics,
right?
And we have to learn to we really have to understand we have to move beyond that, and we have to have our own outlets. We have to do our own data analysis because when we don't do that, they can say whatever they want to say. And they put it out on CNN and Fox News and this and that, and then they tell us what is happening to us, but we don't really fully understand what has actually happened to our people on a daily basis. And you know, that's the fight that I've seen being, you know, as a university student, like seeing the everyday violence that, you know, people in my family and myself have gone through. Yeah. And that not being counted, that not being counted for. That's right. Or references. So I don't want to hook you up, but yeah, that's it.
Well, I think that's right on. I really appreciate that point, Jordan, because left to the government, what happened to Yashika's children won't count as police violence against a murder of African people. And like they said, you've heard it before, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. You know, and that's exactly, you know, what you're talking about. Thank you. I really appreciate that point. You know, because they tell us, you know, according to statistics, only X numbers of African people are being killed, even if it's a large number, but that's just the ones that they count, you know, as being killed by them. The others, they don't count. The ones who jumped off the building, you know, when being chased, or the ones they ran into the highway, like they did at the state fair here, that child that they chased into the highway and then gets killed. He doesn't get counted as a victim of police murder, etc. Uhuru, yes, guys.
I wanted to talk about the taxation. That
Are you going to turn the camera?
No,
okay.
I already knew it.
Okay, guys wearing his do-rag. Go ahead. I'm telling everybody, guys has got on a do-rag. That's why he doesn't want. Go ahead, guys.
The taxation part, number 3 reminds me of this story yesterday that we were talking about, of this Azanian student who goes to the school, the same school they tore down that piece of rose.
Yeah.
And he was at a restaurant on campus, and one of the waitresses, this white waitress who doesn't go to school or nothing, he left on the receipt, you know, I'll give you a tip when I get my land back.
All right.
Oh.
And she started crying, went to the dean and everything. He got kicked out of school. She got raised like tens of thousands of dollars in South Africa. America just put up a GoFundMe, raised tens of thousands of dollars for her. She quit her job to become this wealthy woman. There are written articles all about him, this horrible racist man. And he refuses to stop to apologize. And the what's that political? ANC came against him, and he still refused to apologize. And the students are really uprising right now. Of course,
Splendid.
Around, you know, we all agree, we're not giving anybody, no white people tips. So they should start saying, no, we're not giving taxes.
Yeah. Great. Uhuru. So, we want to say that number 5, we want the right to international political and economic association with Africans and all other peoples anywhere on the face of the earth. We believe that all Black people are African people and are a part of a single national entity. We believe that the genuine freedom of African people everywhere is irreversibly linked to the creation of an independent, united, and socialist Africa. We believe the struggle of African people within the U.S. represents the U.S. front of a worldwide movement of African people for African liberation, political independence, and socialist democracy. We believe that the worldwide struggle for African liberation is in unity with the struggles being waged by the majority of the peoples of the world to end the oppression of nations by nations and to create a new world within which the toiling masses will end the system of workers and bosses and slaves and masters, and will own and benefit from the means and products of our labor and will have political authority over our own lives. Wow. We believe that the natural, objective friends of our struggle for African liberation, independence, and socialist democracy are all the toiling masses of the world, the peoples of the Middle East, the Asian and Latin American peasants and workers, the democratic forces throughout Eastern and Western Europe and the US, and the truly socialist states of the world, and that we must therefore have the absolute right to freedom, to free political and economic international association. Whoa. Anybody? Because you know what the US has done, and much of Europe, after the Vietnam struggle, when the attack by the America on the freedom-loving people of Vietnam who had fought to win their liberation from the French colonialists. And everybody all around the world, majority of peoples around the world supported the Vietnamese struggle. Massive demonstrations were happening in various places. The Black Panther Party even volunteered to send members of the Black Panther Party to fight on the side of the Vietnamese. You had a situation where Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown when he was on a mission to go to Vietnam to meet with the Vietnamese to talk about peace, etc. When this incredible movement won so much support, people in the streets of this country going, how did they go? Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam is going to win. I mean, the thing is, they showed that kind of solidarity and it immobilized. It made it very difficult for the United States to fight that war against the people in Vietnam. So now what the United States has done is says that we declare, in fact, it was General Haig, who became the Secretary of State of the United States government in the Reagan administration, who declared that they were going to say that any of these countries that are fighting, that call themselves freedom fighters, they're going to be characterized as terrorists. So now the United States, anybody that's fighting is terrorists. So they said Hamas in Palestine is terrorists. They say Hezbollah in Lebanon is terrorists. They say all these people who are fighting against control of their countries by white people and white power are terrorist organizations. Then they say anybody who supports terrorists can go to jail. If you come out and say that we support Hamas or we support Hezbollah, who are fighting against the white nationalist Jewish state of Israel, if you say that, then you are terrorists and you're subject to be able to put in jail. Free speech, of course, but the right to associate with whomever we want to associate. that's the thing that they are assaulting with this, kind of law. And that's what's happening. Number 6, we want the immediate and unconditional release of all Black people who are presently locked down in U.S. prisons. Everybody. We believe that all the African men and women who are locked down in the U.S. concentration camps, commonly known as prisons, are there due to decisions, laws, and circumstances which were created by aliens and foreigners for their own benefit and as a means of genocidal colonialist control. We believe that these decisions, laws, and circumstances were created and are enforced without our consent and are therefore illegitimate. We believe that the African men and women who are locked down in these concentration camps are victims of U.S. colonialist ruling class justice, which maintains our enslavement and terrorizes our people, and that they should therefore be released immediately to the just representatives of our struggle for liberation, independence, and socialist democracy. I know that was one that you wanted to talk about, Jordan, but let's open it up for anybody who wants to discuss point number 6.
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
This Dason, because me and my friend was talking about this back at home, and I mentioned this to him, and he was like, "Well, what about the ones that was killers and all those other things?" And I guess can you speak to that, to when he talked about people who he felt did real crimes of that nature?
Well, they are not there because he thought they did real crimes. They're there because white people have decided what crime is. And what is crime? Crime is anything that challenges the monopoly of power and resources in the possession of white power. Anything is a crime. That's not to say that people don't do horrible things. In our communities, to Black people, they do. But the point is, at the moment you say white power, you got the right to do something to them, then you open up the door for it to do something to everybody. The question then, if there are people who do bad things in our community, we need the authority to do to them what needs to be done, not them.
Right.
There are several things about that. There are people, because you live under slavery and colonialism, you learn to act like the slave. We beat our children because slaves, the slave master beat us, beat us. And do we lock up every parent for beating a child? That's why we beat children. That's alien, foreign to African people to beat. You're gonna beat somebody into obedience. That's what slaves, masters do. And that's where we learn how to treat our children based on how the white man treats us. You want us to do something, then get a stick and beat them, right? And or get something even worse, do even worse things. So the point is that our circumstances are created for us. And the way out of this is to get the damn power. And that's not to say that if we know there's a criminal committing acts in our community that's not serving us, then we have a responsibility to do something about that. Even if it's visiting this guy at 2 o'clock in the morning, you understand, doing something, but we have that responsibility and we have to achieve the kind of organization to do that. This is our community. This is our nation. Nobody else, we cannot authorize anybody else to come to our nation to punish somebody. We have to assume responsibility for the entire nation, defining what the crime is and then dealing with it ourselves. That's the point that I would make. And I think that's a really important point because it's true. People tell us today, you hear it. You're always talking about something when the police do this to somebody, but you never say anything about when we kill each other, etc., which is an easy thing to say. I mean, we kill each other. And even during slavery, it is true that during slavery, African people killed African people. But you don't say nothing against slavery because we kill each other. You don't say that. You don't say that. You say, hell, everything happened under the conditions of slavery. Right. And we have to solve this problem in our community. We educate people in the process of doing it. If there's a horrible person in our community, raping women, doing bad things in our community, and one morning when everybody woke up, and they came and found them tied to a light post, having, serious consequences with a note on his chest, saying that this person committed these offenses against Black people and our community, and the Black Guard has decided through meetings that, it has to be settled in this fashion. It will begin to clear up a whole bunch of stuff. And you'll begin to see, that's part of the educational process. We have to do that. In Vietnam, I read that there used to be a situation where there were guys who would like beat their wives and stuff like that. The women in Vietnam, they would get together and go visit this guy with sticks and kick his ass. You understand? I mean, the thing is, we have to begin to assume responsibility. Drug pushers and other forces in our community harming our community. You just can't say, okay, we want the police to come in and just do this, but don't do nothing else. You understand? We just want you to get my television back, but don't do nothing else, right? You know, it doesn't work that way. We have to assume responsibility for the entire thing. That's all we're saying. And it's punkish and cowardly to cop out and say, well, you know, we got some bad people. Hell, we got some, you know, who in our community is worse than the CIA? Who in our community is worse than the police department? I mean, literally, tell me that. You know, you can't define anybody in our community that's worse than the pigs who patrol us every day with guns and what have you. So that's taking responsibility. Anybody else? Point number 6. I'm gonna move it. 7. Yes, go ahead.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
That's all right, Carmen.
I just wanted to add a little bit to that. Like, yesterday posted an excellent post a few days ago about, you know, how all white people have become the police of the neighborhood. You know, they police black people in the way that we speak, the way that we act, things that we do. But I also think it's important, and we learn, I've learned, you know, in the academy that economic development within rural white communities has come as a consequence of prison building.
Yeah.
Where they have found jobs as nurses, as security guards, and such, through the imprisonment of black people, of African people. Yeah. You know, and I was trying to connect that to point number 2, I believe, earlier on. Just about the incriminality of black people. Yeah. And how all of that is connected. You know, because I sometimes I feel like we fail to see that. I mean, I live in Indiana. I know that a lot of our prisons are, you know, concentrated in rural areas, and that's provided
Florida, New York,
so many people, so many white people, especially, lobby to get prisons.
Yes, they do. But not just in the way of God. Go ahead, Penny. You're going to speak to that. Go ahead. That's all right.
And black people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when so many times over the years from the Solidarity Committee, when we go over this platform within like a mass study, this number 6 is the main one that white people freak out about.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to let everybody out of prison.
No, we agree with you. Let them white people stay there. We just want the black people out. You know.
So, I mean, it goes to the heart of colonialism, the right to determine what is a crime and, you know, the power of the state. I mean, it's right there. And I would just say really quick, like this thing happened in Florida several years ago where on the Seminole Reservation, where the indigenous people are supposed to have their own courts, an indigenous man supposedly killed his 2 of his children when he was intoxicated, and the U.S. government court said he had to go to prison for life, but the indigenous people said, no, we sentence him to work and support his family because we know him, and there will be so many people who will not be able to eat if he doesn't do that. But the U.S. came in and overrode that.
But that's the way Africans' justice in courts are too. I mean, traditionally, I don't mean what's happened now. The thing is that the objective is not just to get rid of somebody who committed an offense. The objective is, okay, the offense is committed, then how do we bring some justice to this situation? If he's killed somebody's husband, then how is this widow and her children going to live? How's that going to, and he's going to have to take care of the widow in addition to whatever else, but it's not going to be like we cut his head off or something like that. He has a responsibility here. And that's the way we cure the sickness, as opposed to just creating other illnesses. That's like when you look at TV and you see all of these medications that they offer and they say to cure this, if you take this, but if you take it, you might catch these other 40 diseases. You understand that will kill you, etc. Well, that's not what we're about. We want to cure the disease for real. So I want to.
You know what, Chairman?
Go ahead, Carmen.
No, I also want to speak to the fact that I've talked to so many, especially black men who've been in prison, talked about how they've gained skills in prison, like they've learned how to drive,
use all kind of machinery and shit in prisons. And they can use those skills and get that GED or that education. I even had my uncle tell me, just back in August, how, they teach you computer skills, and it may be on a terrible computer that's outdated, but they teach you skills that might be able to get you a job. You know what I mean? If you're able to find a job that accepts you as a felon. I mean, we buy into this, this prison logic. So many of us, and it just drives me crazy because I sit here and I listen to these these white liberal students who talk about how orange is black and change their perspectives on prisons and how there's so much violence in prisons with transgender people and stuff like this. And I'm like, I've seen my whole community from the time I was probably 7 years old get funneled into the prison system. Beaten and battered by the prison system and suffer by it, suffer from it. And come out feeling as though they got something from it, but they really didn't get shit from it. So,
that's incredible. What would really blow your mind, Jordan? What would really blow your mind, Jordan, is to be in prison, right? And like to be in prison, as I have been, and to be in the TV room, right, watching TV, and then see all the damn prisoners cheering for the police in these shows. You understand? It blows my mind. I'm in the prison. These are crooks. These people who are in there, they are extra crooks. They stole it. They, etc. And they cheering for the police. Or to see somebody when it happened to white people, they call it something like Stockholm syndrome. To be in a situation where African prisoners are bragging about how tough their walking boss is or their guard is versus some other guard that's in the joint. I mean, it's incredible. So you think you're mind blown now, go to the joint and see the prisoners cheering for the police on these police shows. That will,
My grandfather, hopefully, is on this call, and he told me to stay away from that shit altogether, as far away from it as I could be, and I've done my best.
Well, try to do it. Try to do it, and I hope you continue to have something to say about it, whether you can or not, because in many ways, well, I won't go into that, but because there are a whole kind of stories I can talk to you about in terms of prison. I want to try to move it. Number 7, Uhuru. Yes, comrade.
Uhuru, Pierre Jean here.
Pierre Jean.
I'm sorry.
How you doing, comrade?
I'm hanging in there before they hang me.
When do you go to court?
June 1st.
June 1st? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was in court this past Wednesday, and it really hit me. I mean, if you want to see like a clear and obvious picture of the racial disparity, the oppressive structure that we live in, sit in a courtroom.
Yeah.
The picture that was displayed there, you see the white man on the high chair.
Yeah.
Next to him is the white woman.
Yeah.
Being somewhat of his assistant, collecting the documents, the dockets, passing it on to him. Below her is the secretary lady. To the far right is the benches with the black men chained up and just one or two women. In the pews are the poor working class.
Yeah.
But then all the court officials, those working there, are all black. Like from the bailiff, to the parole officer.
Yeah.
It's just all black.
Yeah.
And only outside of the judge are the lawyers and prosecutors that are also white.
Yeah.
But everybody else is of Spanish or black descent.
Yeah.
So you can really get a clear picture of that in a courtroom setting. Something else I wanted to bring to attention is, I think, more like a question. Why is it that they are hiring, like in the community, they're hiring for jails more and more black people to work these jails, to be the correctional officers? I mean,
every time I've gone to jail, it's been so much black people that's manning the stations and manning the bars, you know, booking you in and fingerprinting you. It's just so much black people you will find working. I don't see any other business where so many black people in one place, but in the jailhouse. Why is that? I know that
in some places, black women.
Yeah, a lot of places African women too.
Yeah, women and men.
Yeah,
women and men. In the courthouse and in the jailhouse. I've seen billboards where they'll advertise for to hire more correctional officers, but those billboards are only in the hood.
Yeah. Let me just tell you a couple of things.
They're targeting.
Yeah. Let me just say that you're right. And of course, it's more efficient for them to have one of us functioning as the guards, the ones who keep us locked up and what have you. And it keeps a certain contradiction and tension within the African community too. When the white man moves himself from center stage, from obviously being associated with the crime being committed against our community, it's much more efficient. And then it's like it's been said that a starving man will eat poisoned meat. And so there's no jobs in the community. They give you a job as a pig, you know, they give you a job to oppress your own people. And if you look at when the French, you know, France was a colonizer of Vietnam for more than 100 years. And when the Vietnamese rose up and engaged in war against France, 71% of the French soldiers were non-white. They were people from other colonies. They were from North Africa, Algeria, Senegal, and et cetera. White men didn't even have 71%. So every 100 soldiers that were killing Vietnamese and being killed by Vietnamese, only out of every 100, what is that? Only 24 of them were white. So on the battleground, on the battlefront, it's Africans who were paying the price. And I read that 65% of the troops who were on the front line in Vietnam from this country were Africans, the ones who carried the load. So we fight the battles for the white man who teaches us and demands that we be nonviolent, right? You have to be nonviolent, et cetera. I even heard, as I was pulling up this morning, some discussion about this great liberal who was talking about Palestine and why the white people who call themselves Jews and occupied Palestine are correct in being opposed to Hamas, which is a militant Islamic-based resistance movement because they won't give up armed struggle. So the only ones with the right to kill, to be armed, et cetera, are white people. And that's the way it's said. That's why they say Iran can't have an atomic bomb, right? But the US got more atomic weapons. They could destroy the whole planet Earth. I mean, literally, they have enough. Russia got them, et cetera, but Iran can't have it. And the point, and they, not only the atomic weapon, what they say is they don't want you to have an atomic weapon or anything else they're saying that might lead to the development of an atomic weapon. And so, you know, the objective is for them not to have to fight to carry the load themselves. So they can get us to carry the load. But let me tell you one thing about that also. If you go, you may have noticed that if you travel, you go through these airports, the abundance of African people function as security on the airports. Anybody ever notice that? Africans all over the place. And of course, they are loyal Americans. But I remember going to an airport once and I had a box that was taped up, a small box. It was taped up. And they said, well, you got to open this box. And so I had to open the box for them after it went through the thing. And what was in the box were buttons with Malcolm X on there. And so I opened it up and the African saw, can I have one? You understand? So my point is, that when the crisis deepens, even people who work for white power are going to be affected by, this whole revolutionary movement. And even as they're used to keep the jail cells closed today, there's going to be a point when those jails doors are going to open, and some of the opening is going to be happening from the inside because of the Africans who they got working there to be punitive and horrible. And there's going to be a time when we're going to be able to walk through some of the security on this damn airplanes, airports. We're going to be able to walk through. I was just reading something that said, oh, they got a big problem that in some places it takes 3 hours to get through the security because it's such a security problem. But it's Africans who are colonized, whether they're aware of it or not, and we don't do enough work affecting the consciousness of those people who carry on those jobs. I mean, and that's part of our task as well. Uhuru, I gotta go. Point number 7. We want complete amnesty for all African political prisoners and prisoners of war from U.S. prisons, or their immediate release to any friendly country which will accept them and give them political asylum. We believe that U.S. prisons are also used as the illegitimate tool for torturing, murdering, and holding captive those courageous daughters and sons of Africa who, through their patriotic deeds or spoken or written words in support of the cause of our liberation, have become political prisoners and prisoners of war. We believe, along with the majority of the peoples of the world, that it is the duty of the colonized and enslaved to resist slavery and colonialism and to fight for socialism, and those who do so are patriots and heroines and heroes and should be held in the highest esteem. And we should raise high. We really should. I mean, there are Africans who are rotting in prisons, and their crime is that they fought for free black people. And that's the thing. If nothing else exposes to you who Barack Hussein Obama is the fact that all those soldiers from the Black Liberation Army, from people who fought for our freedom and shit like that, are still rotting in prison, and Obama hasn't said a thing or hasn't offered a single pardon or anything to these people. Point number 8. We want the immediate withdrawal of the U.S. police from our oppressed and exploited communities. We believe that the various U.S. police agencies which occupy our communities are arms of the U.S. colonialist state, which is responsible for keeping our people enslaved and terrorized. We believe that the U.S. police agencies do not serve us, but instead represent the first line of U.S. defense against the just struggle of our people for peace, dignity, and socialist democracy. Therefore, we believe the U.S. police is an illegitimate standing army, a colonial army in the African community, and must withdraw immediately from our community to be replaced by our liberation forces, whose struggles in defense of our community and against our oppression demonstrate their loyalty to our community and their willingness to serve in its interests. And make a note. I'm going to move forward so people can make notes if you want to come back to a particular point. Number 9. We want an end to the political and social oppression and economic exploitation of African women. We believe in the absolute, unequivocal political, social, and economic equality of African women and men. We believe that a fundamental test of the progressive or revolutionary character of any organization, party, movement, or society is its commitment, confirmed in practice, to the destruction of the special oppression of women and the elevation of women to the rightful place as equal partners and leaders in the forward motion of the development of human history, and as leaders, makers, and shapers of human history, development of human society. 10. We want the right to build an African People's Liberation Army. And of course, this is the man that we put there just to alert everybody. This is our stance on the question. Of course, nobody gives you a right to build an army against them. We believe that true freedom, although often taken away, cannot be given to a people. We believe that African people are our own liberators, and that we have a right and obligation to build an African People's Liberation Army to defend our political gains, our freedom fighters and communities, and to win our actual freedom from our oppressive colonial slave masters. We believe that neither meaningful freedom nor guaranteed political and social gains nor genuine liberation are possible without the assuring existence of the African People's Liberation Army. We believe further that the only legitimate wars are wars of national liberation and wars to oppose imperialist aggression and that therefore the only legitimate military forces for African people to serve with are military forces which defend liberty and repel imperialist aggression. Such a force would be the African People's Liberation Army. Point number 11. We want the US and the international European ruling class and states to pay Africa and African people for the centuries of genocide, oppression, and enslavement of our people. We believe that US and European civilizations were born from and are presently maintained by the horrendous theft of human and material resources from Africa and this people. We also believe that this theft of human, I just saw a grammatical error here, that's why I stalled. We also believe that this theft of human and material resources is responsible for the present overpopulation and underdevelopment of Africa and her people, and the political servitude, material impoverishment, and cultural discontinuity and disintegration of African people throughout the world. We believe that Africa and African people are due reparations, just economic compensation, billions of dollars which must be paid to the Organization of African Unity, that has to be changed, or any other legitimate international organization of African people, for equitable distribution for the development of Africa. We also believe that reparations must be distributed to the various independent African states dispersed throughout the world, and to the legitimate representatives of African people forcibly dispersed throughout the world who have not yet won liberation. Point number 12. We want an end to the vicious, self-serving US and Western European political, economic, and military interference in the affairs of Africa and African people throughout the world. We believe that African people in Africa and elsewhere have a right and responsibility to solve our own problems, free from the unwanted and self-serving interference of US and Western imperialists. We believe that the US and Western imperialist interference in the affairs of our people is designed to maintain the continuation of the theft of our human and material resources and our oppression and impoverishment. We believe that African people must be free to organize and struggle for an end to colonialism and neo-colonialism without interference from US and Western imperialism, which supports neo-colonialism and colonialism in Africa, the US, and elsewhere, and which has deposed progressive and revolutionary African leaders and replaced them with neo-colonialist stooges. Point number 13. We want an end to US colonial domination of African people within the US. We believe that the primary struggle of African people within the US during this period is to throw off the alien US colonial domination, which is responsible for virtually every hardship imposed on Black people by this government that is identifiable as the so-called Black problem. We believe that our problems with education, from our inability to control our own schools and determine the education of our own children, to the inferior and racist quality of the education we do receive, are caused by colonialism. We believe that our problems with healthcare, from the absence of Black controlled and operated health clinics and institutions throughout our communities to the hazardous health conditions imposed on us by poverty and callous government decisions, are caused by colonialism. We believe, I wanted to say that, you know, there's a woman in Tampa, and I'm really disturbed about this. She's in prison now. Her child died in December. The child had some serious kind of disease, and she had the child had an episode. 6 years old, had an episode, and the woman didn't have money to go to the hospital, and told a friend that she didn't have the money, but she had an appointment with this program, this doctor next week, and she was going to take the baby to the hospital. The child died 2 days later. And so that happened in December. And last month, they arrested that woman for aggravated manslaughter and said, and she can get life in prison for that. She can get life in prison for that. And that's, you know, all of this is related to what it is that we are talking about. This woman can get life in prison because she didn't have money to pay the doctor. That's extraordinary. We believe that our problems with food and clothing, from the terrible quality and quantity which are imposed on us by blood-sucking merchants to our inability to produce and distribute them for and among ourselves are caused by colonialism, where our whole people is dominated and oppressed by foreign and alien state power for the purpose of economic exploitation and political advantage. Point number 14, we want the total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African socialist government. We believe that the total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African socialist government must be the primary objective of all Black revolutionaries throughout the world. It is an objective which, when achieved, will bring about the fulfillment of the aspirations of Africans and people of African descent everywhere. It will at the same time advance the triumph of the international socialist revolution and the onward progress toward communism, under which every society is ordered on the principle of from each according to his or her ability, to each according to his or her needs. That was a quote by Kwame Nkrumah. So we can open it up for further discussion. Those were the 14 points of our platform. And I wanted to open it up to further discussion to anybody who wants to talk about this. And so, Yashika, you look like you were trying to, is there something you wanted to contribute to this discussion?
I want to talk about imprisonment of our Black people, and the fathers in particular, because they always saying that if there was a two-parent household, or if the father was in their lives, they wouldn't do this or they wouldn't do that. But you get these Black men 30, 40, 50 years in prison.
Yeah.
How can they be part of the, the child's life?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair. And they always want to, downput us and say, oh, we as a Black community, we out there selling drugs and this, what have you and stuff. But how are we to take care of our families and our kids and what have you if we don't go out there and, and we didn't bring these drugs into this world.
Yeah.
White people brought these drugs here.
Yeah.
And y'all brought all these problems and hatred to us here. We didn't commit this upon ourselves.
Yeah.
But y'all always want to say it's our fault, it's the Black people's fault, it's
Yeah.
the Black men's fault
Yeah.
that their kids are out here misbehaving and what have you. And it's not true. And it's not fair for them to be able to say that.
Yeah. I think that's right. And that does.
Somebody needs to mute.
Please mute. I think another critical point here that too often gets missed is, Hillary Clinton, among the things that Hillary Clinton stole was the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. That's part of our tradition. Culturally, it's part of our tradition. It shouldn't have to be a Black man in the house. The point is that when we function the way our communities have functioned normally, traditionally for centuries, thousands of years, then it didn't have to have a Black man in the house. There was an African community. We looked after the children collectively. Why does it have to be the responsibility of this sister to raise the children when you got a whole damn community around you? What is it? That's a fundamental aspect of the contradiction. And that's also part of what we talk about when we're talking about socialism. A return to the socialism that we knew before we met white people and white power, where the community assumed responsibility for our children, for our elderly, everybody. When I was growing up, it was unthinkable that we would put an old person in a nursing home. That was unthinkable. That was the most horrible thing. When we knew white people did that, that blew our minds to say that they put the old people in some nursing home because somebody took care of the elderly, somebody took care of the community, took care of the children and things like that. That's the kind of community that we came from. That's the kind of society that we are fighting for. So that it's not up to this single woman to try to take care. There is no such thing as a single woman, right? The point is that we live in a community and all of us have responsibility for the children and for the elderly and for what happens in the community. And that's why what you do in this situation, when you talk about resolving a contradiction through our court systems, for lack of a better term, it's not just throwing somebody away, it's solving the problem. Like was talked about that happened with on the Seminole concentration camp that they call a reservation. No, you're not putting this guy over here for life. What you're going to do is create a situation where he can take care of that family that he has injured, as opposed to creating several other problems. We're going to deal with this problem because it's a community. That's the thing that we have to create. That's socialism. Uhuru.
Chairman.
Hold on. We'll get to you, I think, Herdosia Shango. Go ahead.
Chairman,
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what were the dual roles for the education system again?
What was what? The dual education serves the dual related purpose of preparing people in society for production. People have to be able to produce, even no matter how, what kind of production it is. It could be the simplest kind of production or what have you. It could be that the father and the mother who teaches that if you're going to go out and hunt, this is how you have to do it. And every generation learns how to do that. That's part of the education. Education also serves the role of reproducing the ideology of the community, the society that holds it together. Usually in our household, people talk about women play like such a primary role in doing that because the children are often with the women, and how they begin to grow up initially is how the woman teaches them what it is they're supposed to be. And then, of course, you know, it gets worked out different ways too, because there are rituals and rites of passage and things like that people go through. And then it's been institutionalized for thousands of years, Timbuktu and other places like that. But the main point is that education really is designed to teach us to be productive in society, and then to reproduce the ideology of the society. So the ideology, the society understands itself in relationship to the rest of the world a certain way. That's what education does. Uhuru. Herdosha, was that you? Uhuru.
Yes, Chairman. Conrad. I just really want to appreciate this political education. Chairman, I just really appreciate 14 points. And I know that when I first came into this work, I just know like this system had touched my life and my family in so many ways. And this platform, it speaks to my past, present, and future. It speaks to, like, it showed me that I had no power. It showed me exactly what the problem was, and then it led me to my freedom and like exactly what I have to do to get it. And so I just feel that this has to be part of your everyday routine. Like, it's a political education that can never be exhausted.
Right.
And once you learn the platform and you build the platform and you offer, then it makes me feel like I'm so powerful because I have these 14 points and I govern my life according to these platforms. So I just really appreciate it.
Uhuru. I think that's right. That's really powerful, and it does. You read the 14 points, and what you find is that they mean something new to you every day, because you have experiences that relate to these 14 points every day. You see things happen in the world, whether it's happening, you know what kind of position you should take about Afghanistan and places you never heard of before. It's in the 14 points. You know, the relationship we want to have with various peoples, and how we define what the U.S. and how white power imperialism came into existence at our expense. You can't do better than studying these 14 points all the time and setting up studies. You know, if there are 3 or 4 of you or 2 of you, et cetera, getting together every week to go through the 14 points and to learn them and to make them your own. Thank you for that, Herdosha. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Day.
I also wanted to touch on point 2.7 about the prison, and not really mention how like really parasitic and insidious this whole system is, because you know the prisons, they pretty much force Africans and imprison people to work for pennies a day, right? And then these same corporations will not hire ex-convicts and ex-prisoners. So it's just that point, really speaks to me, and this upsets, that whole thing just really, upsets me.
Go to jail, get a job. Yeah. And the point, I think is mentioned, who may have mentioned it to someone earlier, go to jail, get a job, go to jail, get a quote unquote education. You can learn how to do this and that now. Go to jail to do that. And then you can't do anything with it once you get out of jail, right? Because you're a convict. But here's something that I really would like for us to understand, and I don't know how to say it well enough, because I've heard parts of this discussion that informs me that it's really, really not well understood. And that is that African people around the world are a captive people. Doesn't matter if you're on the continent of Africa or if you're in Houston, Texas. We are captive people. Our condition, the condition that we experience anywhere on earth, is a consequence of Africa being attacked by white people and black people being stolen and dispersed around the world, and then borders being set up on the continent of Africa to redefine us for the benefit of white people getting wealthy and rich. Whole countries, whole peoples, getting everything because of that. And then all the laws that we are affected by, all the institutions that affect us are laws and institutions that were created out of that process. Their legitimacy has to be measured by their relationship to the process of enslaving and holding African people in captivity. I met an African once who, from South Africa. In fact, he was a part of the party years ago, and he said something to me about how what colonialism really did. It made some clinics. It brought some hospitals here to Africa. Are you crazy? Does that mean that Africa would have no hospitals if white people hadn't come and captured us and put us in slavery? Well, that's the most ridiculous assumption in the world. But there are people who start there, or there are people who start with the prison system is unjust because it did such and such a thing as that. The prison system is unjust because we got a damn relationship to it. It's the whole thing is unjust. Taxes are bad. Yes, taxes are bad, and there are a number of reasons you can say tax costs all value that people pay into taxes. Where does the money come from? It come from the tax man don't make no damn money. It doesn't create value. The government, the people work to do that. So that's one thing that it makes it illegitimate up and down the line, unless the government is a people's government, a revolutionary government, where the taxes go to create the free health care, to quote the free education, to the free things that we need to survive on. Then that's another story. But the bigger problem for us is that all of it is tied to a captive people. That the white people pay taxes. At least they can pretend they get some benefit from it. But you don't get any damn benefit from paying taxes. In fact, when you pay taxes, it works against you. All the time, it's working against you. So it's a totally different arrangement and different relationship that we have to this social system. The point that I'm making is that our relationship to the social system, the entire relationship, is illegitimate. It might be legal, but it's illegitimate. And the only reason it's legal is because those who have the power make the law, right? And the slave master made slavery illegal. Can you imagine somebody being the slave master making slavery illegal? It doesn't work that way. Only the slave has the ability to end slavery, right? And that's what we are confronted with today. So the whole thing is a trap. It's a setup. It doesn't mean that we don't do bad things in our communities, and we're not capable of doing bad things, because we live in very desperate situations that's manipulated and controlled, and we have a responsibility to solve these problems. And solving these problems, even though we say open the door, free all the prisoners, that doesn't mean that we don't know that there are damaged people who are in those prisons. There are damaged people who are going to come out of those prisons, and that if we don't retrain our entire population, then we're going to continue to do bad things to us, because we've learned nothing but bad things. We haven't taught ourselves anything. Everything we've learned, the white man has taught it to us. So we're going to have to unlearn a whole bunch of other stuff. And that's why you have to have a revolutionary power. The dictatorship of the proletariat, that we have to take power. We have to have the control over the African society so that we can begin to reshape, reform these relationships that we have with each other, destroy all manifestations of colonialism and white domination. That's what has to happen if we're ever going to be free. And I think that's fundamentally important for us to understand this. I will accept nothing less than that. And that's how I think that we have to see it. We have to see that this is a generation that refuses to ever see white power or any foreigner dominate African people ever again. We're going to end it, and it should never reoccur. That's our responsibility for being alive today as African people. So we are just about like imperialism, out of time, so to speak. Is there? I know there's somebody there who was just dying to say something, and I just cut you off, and I'm gonna let you say it just once shortly, but be short. Go ahead. You're taking too long. All right, comrade Uhuru. Yes.
I just want to appreciate this political education. It's timeless. It's always universal. And I want to say that I really want to push the point that right now is a state of crisis, right? And this platform right now is what we need to push, because imperialism is in a state of crisis. And if we push this, we will continue to win, and we will get our freedom. So I want to really appreciate this. This can never get old.
Uhuru. So I just to restate it, that this is really important political education. It's the day-to-day political education that we should always be involved in, all the time. And of course, you got your burning spear with you. This is in the burning spear every month. It's in the old burning spears, it's in the ones that's going to be printed, etc. So this is something that we should really go through. And, you know, we find ourselves, a couple of us, just together. You know, we need to study and look at this. Our objective is to create working class intellectuals. And what I mean is that the white ruling class and the middle class, the petty bourgeoisie, they've defined what intellectuals are. But we, through access to African internationalism, 14-point platforms, continuously studying this, we get to the essence, the real question that the petty bourgeois and bourgeois intellectuals can't even, they don't even have the intellectual courage to look at some of these questions. So, so I'm going to go ahead and who do we turn it over to? Uhuru.
Sorry, this is Dave. So, like you mentioned, the 14-point platform is in the Spear, it's in Spanish as well as English. I was just wondering if it's also on the website in different languages or not.
You say, is it on the website? I don't know. That's a good point. That's a good question. You mean on theburningspear.com?
So, on the ASI website?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think it's on the Burning Spear.
I'm not sure, but who manages that?
I guess Rich. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, that's something we have to get. Uhuru, was somebody about to say something?
Uhuru is saying there's a French one out there too somewhere.
Yeah, we've done it in French. We used to run it in French regularly too, when we printed more pages in the Spear. And I think in many ways, French is at least, it may even be more important than Spanish, in the sense that there's so many Africans, French-speaking Africans. You know, if you can speak French and English, you can make it through most of Africa. So you know, it might even help us to interchange it, French and Spanish. We print so fewer pages now than what we used to print. The agriprop director will look into the question of whether or not it's on our website. If it's not, it'll get up there. Uhuru. So.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Yes, comrade.
Hey, this is Jordan Gagler. I just want to say something about you know, the last point that you made about just looking at it from a larger point of view. When I was younger, a lot of my grandparents and people who've been in prison told me to read about Mandela, and I love Mandela. I love Mandela. Cool, right? I went to South Africa, right?
Okay.
And I went to South Africa, and I have to tell you that it was probably the most traumatic experience that I've ever had. You're looking at a country that is 88% African.
Yeah.
And you go to places like Soweto.
Yeah.
Where Africans literally, African children, specifically, run up to white people, and look to them for hope, and look to them for encouragement, and look to them to save them, and they can do nothing about us. Absolutely nothing about us. They live in poverty. They don't control their wealth. They don't control their country. All they control is basic government. And I think that every African should understand that, because every country that I've been to, and I've been to 5 different countries, I've seen that over and over again. From Brazil
to Italy, to France,
Yeah.
South Africa,
Yeah.
everywhere that I've been, I've seen us suffer.
Yeah.
And I really can't stress that enough. So, you know, we really have to understand what black power means and what African international means specifically.
Yes.
Because that is really the key. And the burning spear is a jewel of all of our people.
Yes.
That's all.
Uhuru, thank you. And let's get the spear in the hands of everybody, because we need to have the whole African community come into contact with the rest of the world from the perspective of their own interests. And like I said, most of us spend our lives living in just the village or community that we're born in. We don't have access to the world. And but if we write this burning spear, and if we are able to take these 14 points and to translate them in issues and struggles that impact on our community on a regular basis, when somebody in the housing project picks up this newspaper and then read what happened to them as reflected in point number this or point number that, and then the whole world can get interpreted to this African based on this as well. And that is going to be key to bringing Africans into a revolutionary international kind of consciousness. Because one of the traps we're in are these borders that they've created for us. They create borders in Africa so that we're separated. They put us in these different places, and borders separate African people. The only people who speak for us are the people who cross borders easily, and those are white people. So we don't even have contact and connection with each other. The French can speak to all these Africans, French-speaking countries in Africa. You don't speak French, so you can't even speak to your brothers and sisters, but the white man can. You understand? And the same thing is generally true. So we have to break those barriers down. All the borders have to come down. Africa must be united and liberated. So Uhuru, comrades. Comrades, within the next few days, we'll get to you what our next study is going to be. Am I going to be out of place next weekend? I'll be out of place next weekend. So it won't be possible. What I want to try to do is get into some discussions around political economy. So I'm hoping that we can begin that study most in the immediate future. So, but we'll get back with you shortly to say what the next study is going to be. So just go through again what I have here.